So I've been thinking about the Steam Frame, which is set to come out pretty soon here. Valve is about to announce the Steam Machine and the Steam Frame. And I know a lot of people are excited for the Steam Machine. I have personally been excited for the Steam Frame. Now, with everything that's going on with the price of computer parts right now, I kind of have to ballpark how much is this Steam Frame going to cost? So it looks like it's probably going to be around $1,000 USD or $1,400 Canadian, which is pretty expensive. Now, the actual price tag has not been released yet, so I'm not saying that's actually what it is. This is speculation, and this is going off what has already been speculated. But I started thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, I have wanted a VR headset for a long time, and I really don't want to buy into Meta or Facebook's VR headset. I just really don't like Facebook. I used it a long time ago when it was cool to use it, but then after a while it just became slop. Before the term slop really got really popularized on the internet. And I just didn't like the idea of how the company operated. It always seems like they were just, stealing your data and using it for nefarious purposes. So having a Quest just felt a little bit wrong, even though it is a pretty valid VR headset. And there was the Oculus Rift, which also seemed like a pretty good headset, but I would probably have bought in that one. But then I heard the Steam Frame was going to come out, and I'm like, okay, well, if I am going to buy any hardware for a VR headset, I would probably buy the Steam Frame, because I know Valve is a great company. I love Steam, which is a fantastic piece of software. I've had very little negative experiences with Steam or Valve at all. And of those little negative experiences, they were rectified. So pretty much everything's been positive. So why not buy a Steam Frame if it's going to come out? Even if it is $1,400 Canadian, $1,000 USD, it's still worth it, right? Well, then I started thinking a little bit more. I'm like, okay, I've always wanted VR, but then what VR games am I going to play? And I had to think to myself, okay, is there any VR game I actually want to play? I can think of top of mind, that I haven't, wishlisted on Steam or are currently aware of. And I can really only think of a few. I know there's Beat Saber, which is cool, but it's been around for a long time, and I'm not that interested in Beat Saber. I know there's Superhot VR, which is a great game. I played it before as a demo, but I also have finished Superhot before, so I don't really care to play Superhot again. And I know there's Half-Life Alyx. Now, I love Half-Life. I played Half-Life 2, episodes 1 and 2. I have started working my way through Black Mesa. I'm about halfway through. Love Half-Life. And I would absolutely play Half-Life Alyx. And if there's any reason for me to get a VR headset, it would be for Half-Life Alyx. But then I thought, okay, but what else? Well, I actually couldn't really think of many, if any, VR games that I would actually want to play. And I know partially that is on me because I haven't really browsed the Steam store that much to look for VR games since I've never owned a VR headset. But the point felt a bit mute because it never felt like there was any big VR video games. Ones that people would rave about and tell you about, you have to play this game. It's amazing in VR. This is an essential to have in your library. I only ever heard that from Half-Life Alyx. I have never heard that from basically any other game other than Superhot and Beat Saber. So it made me think, okay, if a Steam Frame is going to be 1,400 CAD, $1,000 USD, and I'm going to buy it and only end up spending a bit more money on Half-Life Alyx and maybe Beat Saber, am I basically forking over $1,400 just to play one video game? What am I really buying here? A $1,400 video game? That's kind of expensive for a video game. Now, I know that there is more than those those VR games available on Steam. I am well aware that there are plenty of VR video games out there. But I think the point I'm really trying to make is how many AAA VR games exist out there that you are aware of? How many can you name off the top of your head? Now, if you own a VR headset, you likely can name quite a few. But I'm curious about the people who don't own VR headsets. How many AAA VR games can you name off the top of your head without going to the Steam store page? VR AAA video games that you want to play, but you haven't got a chance yet because you don't have a VR. So what am I really trying to get at here? I'm trying to point out that the marketing for VR has been not so great. Not just the marketing, but the lack of AAA development in the VR space has been not so great. And perhaps that's because most people haven't really bought into VR. I don't know a whole lot of people who own a VR headset, partially because the price tag is so high to get in. It's still high. It's still expensive to buy a VR headset. It was expensive to buy a VR headset 10 years ago. I remember it being the coolest thing back then. It's still expensive now. That price has not really come down. I know the meta has enabled a lot of people to buy into VR at a cheaper price, but what's the cost of that? They mine your data and sell it for nefarious purposes. So in a way, there's a trade-off. But yeah, I think there's an element that's missing here. We don't really have, or it doesn't really seem that we have a lot of AAA VR video games. I know there's a game called Boneworks. I know there's Blade and Sorcery. I know there's a couple others that I have come across faintly that looked interesting and fun. So I know there's a few of them out there. I'm not saying there's no AAA VR video games. I'm just saying I'm having a hard time thinking of any off the top of my head. Maybe that's just because I never owned a VR headset before, but I think that's kind of something worth pointing out, because if these companies do want us to purchase and buy into their VR ecosystem, you would think they would want to be marketing to people who don't yet own VR headsets, as well as the people who do own VR headsets for video games, but getting people excited to buy into VR, because it doesn't feel that exciting right now. Don't get me wrong, I would still love to play Half-Life Alyx, and I'd probably still play a little bit of Superhot, but I can't see myself really wanting to fork over the price of a brand new piece of hardware only to buy 1 to 5 games that I may only play for a little while before putting them down to go play some other PC game that I enjoy more. At any rate, that's my take on VR. Will I end up buying a Steam frame? I don't know. Maybe. It's not that the price is the problem. It's more of the value you get for the price you're paying. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you in the next video. Sign up.